What's up, YouTube? Ryan Panny here. Hope you guys are doing reasonably well. It is time for a review of the new A Day to Remember record, You're Welcome, out this past Friday, March 5th. I gotta say, there was a point where it felt like this thing was gonna become like the Chinese democracy for scene kids. It just kept getting pushed back again and again and again. I think the rollout started maybe summer 2019. I mean, this poor band has a legitimately difficult time getting records out when they want to. But I'm glad it's finally seeing the light of day. I've been really curious to hear it. I've always liked this band, and I've always really respected that unique lane that they tapped into by just fusing the worlds of pop punk and metalcore, which in retrospect feels like such a fucking obvious strategy, but in the mid-2000s, it really wasn't. It felt totally new at the time. I feel like before I dive into You're Welcome, I should clarify exactly where I stand in regards to A Day to Remember's music, because the band does have such a wide tent of listeners that I think it'll help to understand precisely where I'm coming from personally and how it affects my take on this record. For me, the band's unmistakable peak, and one of my favorite records ever, is 2013's Common Courtesy, which was also my album of the year that year. I had definitely enjoyed like specific tracks from For Those Who Have Heart and Homesick, which were their breakout records commercially, but their music did always have a certain immaturity to it, and I always felt like both on the heavier metalcore side and on the lighter pop punk side, there were things missing. Like they weren't quite up to par with a Newfound Glory or a Blink, and they also were not up to par with an As I Lay Dying or an August Burns Red. There were elements missing from both. And that's what made Common Courtesy so amazing to me, because it was a record where all of a sudden, bam, they kind of mastered both sides of that equation. The metalcore songs were ferocious, the pop punk songs were really fun and infectious, and the songs that directly merged the two were equally fantastic. They figured out both sides at the same time, and the result was just excellent. I'm also partial to the prior record, What Separates Me From You, which a lot of fans disliked for leaning a bit too far over to the pop punk side of things, but to my ears, it's an incredibly tight, snappy, well-written 10 tracks that you just want to hear over again as soon as it ends. It's held up well too. I'm a metal guy. I don't come to this band for something super fucking heavy. So when an album just is mostly pop punk and then has one or two aggressive tracks, what do I care? The songs are good, that's all I need. And I enjoyed their last album, Bad Vibrations, too, which is actually one of a handful of reviews I've done on this channel that I really disliked just because I was a little bit too hard on the record. In retrospect, it definitely deserved a 7 out of 10, and I just really overreacted to 2 or 3 bad tracks at the very end of it. But that's where I'm coming from. I figure that type of context is genuinely helpful with a band like this, where there's such an intersectionality for fans. So now, turning our attention to this new record, what's really fascinating is you've likely noticed that I describe all A Day to Remember music as it pertains to the pop-punk metalcore seesaw that they're constantly on. Sometimes songs or albums are at equilibrium, sometimes it dips way down to the metalcore side, way down to the pop-punk side, and you can basically gauge all of this band's music on that push and pull relationship. But You're Welcome is different. We can't use that anymore. It's useless. Just rip it up and throw it out, because about a third of this album dips its toes legitimately, sonically and songwriting-wise, into pop music. Forget the punk part. Tracks like High Diving, most notably, Bloodsucker, pieces of the song Re-Entry, Degenerates. These songs all feel like they are following directly in the footsteps of a transition that All Time Low have made on recent records, where it's no longer just a couple guitars, a bass, and an acoustic drum kit. Now we've got bass boosts and various hip-hop elements thrown into the mix. We've got synthetic percussion. We've got, like, even on the song High Diving has snare claps in it. When it pops up on this record, it is a serious makeover for the band. And I know that the occasional acoustic ballad has not been beyond the scope of this band's music in the past, but songs on here like Only Money and the closer Everything We Need, they do feel particularly confined to a pop song structure. And note that out of 14 tracks on here, there's only like 3 songs or 4 songs that even breach the 3.5-minute mark. These really are simple little ditties with virtually no room for an extended instrumental section or really a detour of any kind. They are pop songs on a mission. And you know what? These changes are doubly strange to me, because they seemingly fly in the face of frontman Jerry McKinnon's own description of what the record was going to sound like before it even came out. There's this blabbermouth blurb that he put out in like 2019, I think, that I actually held on to. Here's what he said about what the record was going to sound like. The whole point of this for me was like, let's use the A Day to Remember formula, same thing that everyone has always known and loved about us, but let's take on modern influences. Let's take on modern structure with the small chorus into the big drop part, and let's do that as a band instead of electronic stuff. Let's use some of those elements to make cool sounding stuff as we go, but keep it a Day to Remember sound here. But let's mess around with new song structure and a modern production take, but keep that heaviness that is us. That was what he said. To me, that sounded like they were going to take on structural and sonic elements of hyper-modern, like second wave of metalcore stuff. but molded to fit their style. That's what it sounded like he was talking about there. But that's not what these songs are at all. These songs, at least the ones I'm referencing here, are a Day to Remember sound sort of merging with various pieces of legitimate charting pop music to create something totally new. I gotta say, it's something that I did not see coming at all. Really, the only moments on You're Welcome that match at least my interpretation of Jeremy's description of the record are the song Resentment, which does exactly what he was talking about. It's got that big bass boosted drop following the chorus, and then it otherwise merges that element with just a very Bad Vibrations style song. And then the song Permanent, which also comes to mind, has this breakdown in it with these super heavily edited guitars that really almost tumble over each other, but in a very controlled and robotic way. That, to me, sounded very modern as well. But putting aside those couple of instances I just mentioned where it felt like I had actually accurately forecasted the sound of this record, all this pop stuff was a legitimate surprise. I actually fully support it. Like I said, I'm a metal guy. I do not come to a band like A Day to Remember for heaviness. I don't give a shit. And I also think that something like this is totally within their wheelhouse to try. It's not outlandish. There is nothing wrong with the band taking full advantage of Jeremy's very palatable vocals and borrowing various pop production staples to collect and kind of throw behind him so they can just evolve as a band. That's fine. What's not fine is weak songwriting. Can't do any of that if the songs aren't there. I don't care if you want to make a death metal record, a R&B record, a pop record. If the songs aren't there, we kind of have nothing left to discuss. And man, there are some real fucking clunkers that come along with this pop experimentation here. I mean, High Diving has to be the worst song the band has ever released. From that Put Up or Shut Up bridge with the claps in it, to that corny pun in the hook about life being a beach, to that whole droning, that the whole song basically centers around musically. I find this really, really difficult to listen to. The track Degenerates is a similarly brutal low point here, where the confines of that pop structure, chorus first, verse chorus bridge, really work against the song and give it the distinct honor of somehow feeling extraordinarily repetitive despite being a 3-minute long song. And lyrically, it's supposed to be this ode to accepting people for their flaws, but the word choices here, words like degenerate and liar, they're a little bit too strong, and the message kind of misses its mark. Like when we use the term degenerate as a verb, it's meant to describe a precipitous decline to a lower form of existence. Like a degenerate, which I guess we use a little bit loosely, is meant to mean a person who is conspicuously lower in terms of morality and treatment of others, just general quality of humanness, than the rest of us. The message that I think they're trying to get here in this song, it would work best as a sentiment that, we're all human, we all have flaws, we're all equal, but a degenerate is a very strong term to use, and it's off-putting for me when it's meant to be kind of this, like, I'm not gonna say happy-go-lucky sentiment, but certainly like a message of acceptance and forgiveness, and people are what they are. Then the ballad Everything We Need, I mean, it's got a sweet message on its face, similarly to Degenerates, but if we do the pound for pound comparison, which we can do here, if it means a lot to you, I'm already gone, it just falls flat on its face. It feels really cheap and easy in comparison with what A Day to Remember have somewhat successfully done in this department. And then the other key ballad, Only Money, while definitely having some of the album's strongest lyrics and a rare narrative bent for A Day to Remember, it falls into the same musical traps, just with, in this case, a god-awful, like, adult alternative piano line. I meant to say yuck there, but it just came out in such a primal way, my hatred for that element of the song, that is what it is. And then scooching over here to something that we could say is remotely pop-punk-ish, we have another misstep with the song Viva La Mexico, which is just an off-brand spring break anthem. I think it actually is meant to describe a bachelor party, but same shit. Where you have Jeremy McKinnon comes in with these weirdly droopy, low-register vocals where it sounds like he has a cold or something. And then this song also has just the worst pre-chorus on the album, where you have that real grating combination of gang vocals and drumline practice occurring side by side. So a lot of misses. There is one track on this album where A Day to Remember's experimentation really does pay off in spades, and that's the song Looks Like Hell. This song is like no A Day to Remember song I've ever heard. Totally different. The eerie piano line that runs through this track, it feels like Faith No More and like Meteor era Linkin Park had a baby. And I really enjoy how much they add to it by having dissonant electric guitars playing that same theme later on in the song. And then later in the chorus, when you have those syncopated guitars and that Western theme occurring in layers, it creates a real mood and a distinct atmosphere that is completely new to this band's music. So this song was a total home run. And I should also say the drums in this song do a remarkable job of helping guide the mood up and down. You can hear that it is very deliberate in the way that the track's energy builds. Again, total home run, and I would say that of all the sounds on You're Welcome that you're not used to hearing from this band, this is definitely both the most unique and the best executed. And predictably, I also enjoy the track Last Chance to Dance, which is the quote-unquote heavy song on this record, although I find it fucking laughable that the band teased this song. I vividly remember this, and that's why this was the first track I listened to on this album before any of the others. I remember them teasing this song as heavier and more aggressive than Violence off of Common Courtesy. That's what they said. Not even close. That I will say. But a cool song. Permanent is definitely my favorite on here lyrically, with these simple but vivid depictions of anxiety and uncertainty and instability. It's actually like almost difficult to listen to. Infinitely relatable and explosive musically. Also, make sure to listen for the bass line in this song. Really cool bass line. I also enjoy Mind Reader. That's a solid, catchy, pop-infused track. Not a huge departure from what the band would be known for, so it's not really notable in that regard, but a good song. And I also have a lot of fun with the song FYM, which of course I'm extremely disappointed does not stand for Fuck Your Mom or all the other colorful acronyms that I was dreaming up in my head, but I really do enjoy how they take the theme of working class drudgery and the escapist dream of material wealth. They take that and make it fun instead of depressing. There's been a lot of American literature and songcraft to make that very depressing, but this is just a fun song. And you know what, there's a line on this song that I think people might miss the cleverness of. He says, "Luck don't let me down because I paid my dues in spades." I might be reading too much into this, but I would think that spades could be a reference to Ace of Spades, which is a lucky card in poker. It's hard to fathom in a Day to Remember fan who listens to this whole thing thoroughly and really gives it a chance and doesn't find something to like here. It's there. It's there in broad daylight. What's also there is a journey into uncharted musical territory that flounders, not because it was a poor choice for the band at all, but just because of weak ass songwriting. That'll do it to you every time. And simultaneously, we do have them kind of phoning it in on the familiar stuff. Viva La Mexico, the song Brick Wall, which I never really mentioned because I don't have any feelings about it one way or the other. The track Everything We Need, which we did talk about, which has some precedence in the catalog, it just falls flat. So it's a difficult listen sequentially because you have to really trudge through both new experiments that don't work and then just kind of half-ass milquetoast versions of things that have worked. Yeah, listening sequentially, it's real spotty at best. There are 5 songs in here that I really recommend. I think I've said positive things about all of them. Maybe 6 if I'm in a really, really generous mood. But as I emphasized earlier, I wholeheartedly support this particular band expanding their sound. I will always be interested to see where it goes. I do not think it is outside of their abilities to do so. Whether it would be taking that pop-leaning third of this record and blowing it up into a record with much stronger songs, I could see that being interesting. I could see the proposition of a full-on metal record from these guys being an intriguing thing. There's a lot of possibilities and a lot of talent here. But I can't say I enjoyed more than a small portion of this record. There are parts where I definitely see what they were trying to do, but it just did not hit for me. You're Welcome gets a 4 out of 10 from me. As always, thank you so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video and are not yet subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so by clicking right over here, as well as checking out any other rock or metal-related content that I publish here on a weekly basis. I really appreciate you guys watching, liking, disliking, just engaging in any fashion. Twitter, Instagram handle @RyanPandyMusic. Again, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you soon.